Well, hello there and welcome to Travels with Geordie. If this is your first visit, my name is Peter Knowles and I live on this engineless classic wooden motor cruiser here in Victoria, British Columbia, along with the loving memory of my pup Geordie, all the while fixing it up for some hopeful significant cruising someday. So if that's a thing that might entertain you, we'd love you to stick around and subscribe. Cheers. Well, yes indeed, the old engine is out, and there's a bit of a complication with the new one, but let's not get ahead of ourselves. I've already messed with the timeline enough as it is. I hope you enjoy watching me remove the engine to get to here. Okay, with the engine starting to get prepared to get up onto what I call the bridge, I have to flip the mounts over back to their normal location so it's down, and then build some sort of mount across the back out of plywood so that it can sit on a sled. The idea of the sled is so that I'm going to put two 2x6s shooting right out the window, that when I lift the engine up onto that, it can slide out and down onto the dock. So everything is based on this modularity of 2 feet. So I gotta make the sled on the engine 2 feet, the rails, the bridge, whatever, call it 2 feet. Anyway, you'll see as I get around to it. Gotta start by flipping the motor mount over again. I had flipped these over because it allowed me to use the existing engine beds, albeit still pretty badly cut up. That's a nut. And it worked pretty well, really. And off they come. So easy enough to put it back on upside down again. Or right side up, I suppose. Okay, and a temporary mount at the back. And now I just need the sleds. Okay, here we go with the sleds. I'll put these on with some lag bolts. I've already pre-drilled these a little bit so they should bite nice. Perfect. Okay, and screws at the back. Splendid. Then, so the engine is basically ready to slide. I've put the skids on both sides, and we're pretty much ready to roll. Now to build the bridge. Let's go outside and do that. Okay, for those of you who've been following along, I'm going to do this slightly differently than I did it last time. Before I built a bridge, and it came to about here. And then outside, I built a great big gantry with its own bridge on it at the same level. And then I built a connector bridge that had pivots in it. It was bolted so that it could rock back and forth as the boat rocks back and forth, especially as the engine moves and changes the balance of the boat. It worked great, but I think it was overkill. I don't think I need all this huge apparatus. So what I'm going to do this time is build the bridge so it comes out to right about here. And it'll end here, and at this point, I'm going to build just a hinged ramp that will go down to the dolly that I'm going to build, the cart, whatever. We'll get more on that later. That automatically deals with the boat tipping back and forth. The slope of the ramp will be very gradual, reasonably gradual, and I think I can easily do it by waxing the 2x4s and using the come along. Piece of cake. The only problem is, where do I support it? Last time I supported the bridge inside. This time I'm going to support it here, but of course, if the pivot point is here, that's going to flip the other end up once I put 650 pounds of engine on it. So I just have to make sure that side is tied down. I think it's going to go great. The other problem is the size of the window and the size of the engine. The window opening is 32 inches high. The engine is 31.5 inches high. Yeah, so you'll notice that the skids, the sleds, are up about 6 inches, 5.5, 6 inches from the bottom of the oil pan. So there's exactly 24 inches between this lower part of the window, so my 2x6s will come right through here. The oil pan will just skim right. You'll see how it comes together. Let's build it, and it's much easier to see it once it's done, isn't it? Okay, so there's two things I have to figure here. One is I gotta be careful because this piece of combing here, or covering board, whatever, is actually slightly higher. So I'm gonna have to put a notch in it. So in the meantime, so I don't scratch it up, I'm just gonna put that over it. And I can't go too far in because I still have the chain hoists on the engine, so I can't go all the way across. I just want to make sure everything sort of lines up. The astute amongst you have noticed that this particular cross member here can't be here. Well, it's only here as I do a test, because of course if the oil pan is hanging down low, it will run into it here, which means making the bridge really strong, it's a little more complicated. I can remove this one, which is only here temporarily, while I put some plywood on the bottom, which will make it much stronger. And of course, it doesn't give me much strength this way, but it'll hold it together okay. But this one can go about 2 feet from the other end, where the engine is not yet dropped, so that should work out pretty well. I'm liking it. Alright then, and this very dull looking thing is simply the support that holds the other end of the bridge in the wheelhouse. Getting close. And lastly, because I'm not going to put any weight on the cabin sides here, the bottom of the window, I want to transfer that weight to the deck out here, right against the hull. So this little bit of blocking here sits right here. Now, it's not perfectly aligned, so what I'll end up doing when I actually set it up is actually use this towel, which will soften the load and allow me to sort of get a kind of an alignment on the, oh yeah, it looks good. A little less down here, a little more over there. And that'll save putting a point load on this fiberglass in case a corner or something caught. I don't want to crack. Okay then, I've built the bridge, I've built the inner support, I've built the outer support, I've built the slide on the engine. Is it time? Okay, so the idea here is to lift the engine high enough that I can slide the bridge underneath and put it on its stand on the other side, and then turn it so that it can be put down onto the bridge on its sleds. Now, obviously I can't turn it if the two lifts are that far apart, but if I move them very close together, they become a triangle and it's relatively easy to turn it. Now, the trick I had last time is that I couldn't lift the engine high enough to get the bridge up and under, and I had to do some kind of scary extra, it was kind of messy. But because these things will lift very close to the top, I'm feeling a lot better about that this time. I think. We'll find out shortly. Put this down a bit, just enough that I can move this to there. And slide this one all the way over. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take another piece of rope and just attach these all together here. And here we just lift. Okay, that's as high as that end's going. And that's as high as that end's going. We're not that far off. I'm going to think about this for a few minutes. Alright, I'm doing exactly the same sketchy winching the bridge up underneath the engine thing as I had to do last time. Fun. But it worked perfectly. And I'm on. Okay. Whew. That was exciting. Come on. It's up. This is a lovely task. For those of you who've been watching for a while, you know I hate oil. I hate anything to do with oil, diesel. Because when you live on a boat, one drop of this in the bilge is a sheet 6 feet in diameter in the ocean. So I'm very cautious with it. Ugh, hate it. Okay then, well, we're getting to the point where it's time to build the little cart or dolly or whatever you want to call it that I'm going to run it up and down the dock with. How about these? Those of you who've been around for a little while and saw me do the last engine, I had some reasonably nice casters, but I gave them away, which I'm very happy to have done. But this time around we've got some really serious ones. These came from an outfit in Canada called Princess Auto, which is sort of a surplus and general industrial supply I think the equivalent in the States would be Harbor Freight. Anyway, I'm grateful that they're there. They're obviously Chinese and they were very cheap, but they'll certainly do the trick. Let's get to it. So the basic structure will be a two 2x6s, one at each end of the cart, and between them will go a piece of this 1.5" angle iron. And the engine will actually sit on that, and the oil pan will sit down between them so that it can be as low slung as possible, keeping that center of gravity low for this sketchy dock. This is a really sketchy dock. Should we take a little tour where this motor's got to come? Yeah, so you can see why I want to keep the center of gravity really low. Excellent, let's get a wrench on that. Do you always buy one extra nut and bolt when you do a project like this? Always bound to drop at least one in the ocean. Okay, tighten this up. All right, that is a robust dolly. So as usual, I'm making this up as I go along. I'll try and figure a way right about there with a pivot. Excellent. Now the other end, let's see. So down here, I want to land somewhat on top of this because I don't want to put too much weight on the dolly as the engine comes down, because I'm going to have some other intermediate supports, but I want everything tied together, because if the boat moves back and forth a little, I want it to be tied to the dolly. And the way it lines up right between the two sets of bolts, and so I think that's good. So I just need to scribe a bit of a line on here. Well, thankfully I have Kim helping me again, who some of you may remember actually helped the last 2 times we did this. So he's an old hand, so this will go just so smooth. Okay, should we go over what we got going on here? Okay, well, motor's in, on its slides. The bridge, which you know I call it, has been waxed. I have a tether line that's around the back of it to keep it from running away when it comes down the ramp. We've got the hinge point of the ramp here. Now this isn't strong enough as it is. As the engine gets to about here, I'll know how far down the boat tips. I'm going to add some structure underneath the ramp part down to the dock, and then we'll glide it down, and right onto the cradle of the dolly. It's going to be a little bit difficult at the end because one end of the motor will touch and the back will still be on the ramp, but it was the only way I could really get it to do this in a simple way, and it'll mean taking this apart and doing some wibbling, but I think we'll be just fine. Okay, cross your fingers. Okay, well, there's nothing to it but to start and see how it goes. Okay, so it's gliding out nicely. We're onto the whacked section of the bridge now, which makes it a lot easier going. So this is the rope that's going around the back and to the back of the engine that I'll use to slow it down when we get to that part. Keep it on the rails straight. Okay, we're getting close to what I call the first breakover. So I think we'll stop with one more pump, Kim. let's call it there. We're just about at the breakover. Okay, now I think the greatest vulnerability here is as we come to the break point, it'll want to twist, because of course as it tips, I'm not certain that the hinge, so to speak, in other words the break point, is exactly the same on both sides, plus the imbalance of the engine can make that. So this is the scariest spot. But before we go any further, I'm going to build that extra structure underneath here. Let's go there, Kim. Whoa, there's the first breakover. Here comes the second breakover. There we go. There we go. There. And this is clear. Okay, perfect. Now it's just a matter of dropping it off the piece of the oil pan, which is just a bit of fiddliness with a bunch of blocks. There we go. There we go, folks. Now all we have to do is drive it down the dock and up the ramp. You coming?
You know, there's more efficient ways to move vehicles, huh?
You have to have the keys. We're halfway there. Well, sort of. You'll have to excuse me, I'm crying. That's because I'm making French onion soup to take over next door to a bit of a party we're having to deal with whatever November the 3rd means this year. Anyway, not a bad little galley. I can still use my stove and do some chopping and drink a little hot apple cider. Cheers. Hello there and welcome to the Travels with Geordie Beer of the Week. It's a glorious afternoon here in Victoria, so any chance to be able to sit outside in the aft cockpit in this kind of weather, we're certainly going to take advantage of. Okay, let's go straight to the beer. This is from right around the corner in Souk, the Souk Oceanside Brewery, and it's Isolation Nation, a nod to the situation we've been in for a while now. I don't know anything else about it. I didn't actually pay much attention to why I bought it. I bought it on the name. So let's see. Oh, it is a glorious day. It really, really is. Let's see what we think of this. Not a bad pour. Hey, am I getting better or what? There we go. Okay, I'm really looking forward to this. It's been quite a week. Cheers. Wow, you know, for a novelty named beer, that's really not bad. It's hoppy, but not too much. It's bright. It's very carbonated, as you can see. It's got Sasquatch hops in it, apparently. Okay, that's fantastic. Wow, that really was a surprise. Okay, let's get down to business. Last week's t-shirt winner was Strange Duder. So Strange Duder, you have won Travels with Geordie t-shirt, and we'll get in touch with you or vice versa, and we'll send that off to you. 3 new patrons this last week. Oh my gosh, I'm so grateful. And they are Sean Garzi, David Porteous, and Neil Groskopf, and I hope I pronounced that correctly, especially because Neil was also the fine gentleman that sent me out the Manfrotto tripod adapters last week at I didn't know who sent them, so thanks again, Neil, for that, and cheers to you all. So all you need now is a word of the week. So the word of the week is hopeful. If you'd like to win a Travels with Geordie t-shirt, just use the word hopeful in a comment down below, and I'll pick at random over the first week or so of comments, and if I pick you, you'll win a Travels with Geordie t-shirt. We're all hopeful, aren't we? That's okay. See you next week.